King Arthur: Legend of the Sword is a fantasy action movie directed by Guy Ritchie. It's the fairy tale story of King Arthur's rise to the throne, with the spin that King Arthur's actually a little older than in the books and the stories and the cartoons where you probably originally have seen him, and he's a tough man of the streets. So the story isn't impeccable, but you can absolutely forgive it for not being perfect, as it's not going to be really the focus of the movie. It's certainly not I watched, an action movie or a fantasy action movie for. As long as it can tread water, which this one can, I'm more than happy to get lost in the fantasy world and let the characters tell the story through their struggles. First impressions, so before I actually watched the movie, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't watch any of the trailers going in, so I was pleasantly surprised. I think getting overhyped for something is probably a good quick way to get it, to kill the excitement from it. So it's probably why I had such a good initial first impression, just because it came out of the blue for me. I did recommend, after I watched this movie, this friend to some friends, and not all of them liked it. Some of them found it was hard to get invested into, and they stopped watching halfway through. And obviously, as I said, I personally didn't have that issue, but I would recommend going into this movie not expecting the next Lord of the Rings or overhype it, because I believe that's what killed the film for them. So absolutely manage your expectations going into this, as I would recommend for all films really. Let's talk about the visuals. So the special effects of this movie hold up quite well. You won't have any Legolas horse mounting crap or anything like that. There was a few moments where Arthur used Excalibur and time slowed down and it got a bit janky maybe, but for the most part the special effects were handled really well. The colour palette of the film was nice and colourful. It was vibrant. It wasn't oversaturated. It didn't particularly stand out, but that's just because it's probably just down to the style choices that were made in the film. It wasn't Sin City, where it's all grey or overly colouring or over favouring one particular colour. It was colourful enough. There are some interesting creatures designs in this movie, and you will see them. There's at one point, in fact, in the movie I remember where the mage character injects Arthur with some snake venom as he's going out to face the villain of the film, Hizingal, and he starts to see trippy things, like he's walking through a forest, for example, and he sees in the trees these dryads, these half-naked women leering at him. He gets to the gates and he looks at one of the guards, and it looks like this fiery demon dude. And all of that was really well done with the CGI. The acting in the film, it doesn't particularly fall short in anywhere. There was one scene with David Beckham, and obviously he's not an actor, so it wasn't the best. But he's not an actor, so I'm not going to give him too much crap for that. The main characters definitely hold their water, and there's a lot of famous faces you'll recognise just watching this film. It's very much like Snatch in that regard. If you've watched Snatch, there was a lot of famous faces in that. It's got the Guy Ritchie appeal. I really liked, there were some good scenes in this. I really liked Jude Law's contribution to this film. He played an excellent villain. There were parts in which he had to actually sacrifice ones closest to him in order to gain use of this dark power that these evil siren characters granted him. So he used them initially to take over the throne, and he used them later on in the film, and it required a sacrifice. He had to kill his wife and kill his daughter and stuff, and it was really well acted, and you felt his loss. Scenes that I didn't necessarily enjoy that much, things that they could have done a little better. One thing I would criticise is when King Vortigern, who is Jude Law basically, that's Jude Law's character, when he transforms into that dark powerful form after he's made those sacrifices, it does look a bit anime, a bit cosplay, a bit too maybe Tekken-y. Don't get me wrong, there's cool smoke and flame effects on his cape and stuff, but he's like this big half-naked buff dude with like a weird ninja scythe weapon. It just kind of looked a bit out of place. I would have preferred personally more of a Lord of the Rings Nazgul caped terror kind of look, but it's a small thing to pick at. I would rate this film overall 4 out of 5. It's not perfect certainly, but it should definitely hit the itch you have if you're in need of a good fantasy movie.